Today we'll take a look at 3 best ways to find great samples. So if you ever struggle with finding the right sample, then this video is literally perfect for you. For each one of these techniques, we will get a sample and make a beat out of it, starting with the most popular one, YouTube. So of course everybody knows about YouTube and everybody uses YouTube to sample at one point or the other. But to be honest with you, I actually don't really like using YouTube for finding samples. And that has layers to it, because what I don't like is not the samples on YouTube themselves. I don't like the way people usually use YouTube to sample. So what people usually do is they literally go into the search bar and they type in samples. Maybe they will do soul samples 1970. And so basically you get these playlists and now you can look through them. And so I really dislike this technique because I was never really able to find any good samples with it. I always was just struggling and thinking that the samples aren't good enough. So I'm actually going to show you 3 alternative sub techniques when it comes to YouTube. And the first one is album search. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick a song that we like. So for example, for me, it's going to be Kanye West, Never Let Me Down. And we're going to go onto whosampled.com. We're going to search up our song. And we're just gonna check out the samples. So Kanye West samples this song here called Maybe It's the Power of Love by Blackjack. So now we're gonna take it, find it on YouTube, go into that artist's discography and check out the exact album this sample came from. And now we're just gonna simply look through the album here. So the sub technique number 2 is sample channels. So there's actually dozens of channels who are dedicated to finding and digging through great samples. So I'm gonna put you on to this guy called Connor, and he's one of my favorite channels that digs for samples, and he has a list of really great samples. So the last sub technique, which I'm just gonna mention real quick, is the recommendation page. So this sub technique is a little bit more advanced because it actually requires you to be constantly listening to samples. And once you do that, YouTube is going to be automatically recommending you more and more samples on your homepage, which I don't know what it is about YouTube's algorithm, but it always finds the best samples, which is actually where I found this sample that's called Dolly My Love by The Moments, which we're going to use to make our beat for this point. And so let's listen to it. And so actually I chose 2 parts of this sample, which first was the beginning of the sample that you just heard. And the second part are these vocals right here. And so I wanted to do something a little bit more creative with this sample. So I'm not gonna be actually just using those 2 parts of the sample and looping them together. So what I'm actually gonna sample from these records is from this green section, I'm gonna sample the chords of it. And from this blue section, I'm gonna sample the vocals of it. So let's start with the chords. We can hear here that we've got these nice chords playing. And so I went ahead and tried to recreate those chords. And so basically we just have these root notes here, D, A, B, and C sharp. And then we're just building these very simple chords on top of that. And to play these chords, I'm gonna be using this Juno 6, which is going to sound like this. Now I wanted to add a little bit more character and color to those chords. So basically what I used is this phaser, reverb, and a red X that's turned up to 33%. And so all of this combined is gonna kind of give us this like detuned, glitchy effect. Now, when it comes to this second blue section right here, all I did with it is I run it through a stem splitter so I can get the vocals. And so here's the result of that. Darling, my love, hey, darling, hey, darling, darling, my love, sweet, sweet. That by itself sounds a little bit dry. So I added this reverb and the EQ, and it's going to sound like this. Actually, 2 more things that I did with this sample is I pitched it down 3 semitones and I chopped it up like this so it fits a little bit better with our chords. Next up, I grabbed this analog lap synth and made a really simple melody with it. Then to thicken our chords up, I grabbed this solid bass and I just used the root notes of the chords as our bass. But it just adds this really nice thickness and warmth to the entire song. Now I think it's time for drums, so I just grabbed this kick and I thickened it up a little bit with a analog clip, this clap, and I added actually reverb to it, so it's just a little bit longer and a little bit pushed back, and this hi-hat. Now I took the signal of all of the drums and I actually split it into two separate signals. So one is the dry chain, which basically we don't have any effects here, and the second is the reverb, which is minus 15 dB, and we just have reverb on it, so it adds a little bit of spaciousness to our drums. So here's the pattern I made. If we just focus on the kicks and the claps, you can see that there's nothing special here. But if we add our hats back into it, then you're gonna be able to hear how it nicely ties the entire loop together. And the last thing I did is I just grabbed this glitchy effect, put a EQ over it so it doesn't overwhelm our beat, and that's pretty much everything. So if we grab all of this and arrange the entire beat out, here's how it's going to sound. And the second technique for finding samples is samplet. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with samplet and how it actually works. But if you're not, then it's really simple. You just have this button right here and it will just give you a random sample. But this is actually not the strength of samplet. The strength of samplet is this feature right here, which is the filters. And this feature is really amazing because basically you can just filter by whatever you want. But there's one problem with samplet that a lot of people mentioned to me, which is that it gives you the same samples over and over. So the reason you're getting the same samples over and over again is that basically you're not logged in, and as soon as you log in, Samplet will be basically saving the samples it already recommended to you, so that in future you won't repeat the same samples over and over again. So using Samplet, I actually found this sample called Heaven by Millie Scott, and I actually used it for Sample Academy's weekly samples, which by the way is another good source for samples. So it sounds like this. So what you heard was the exact part that I used for my song. So basically what I did with it is I just warped it to 4 bars. I put Cymatic's original on it to cut out a little bit of the high end, and a EQ to cut out a little bit of the low end. And lastly, I pitched it up 2 semitones. Next up, I went ahead and chopped up the sample. So I actually just grabbed this end part of the loop right here and this little part right there. So basically what I kind of did changes the entire tempo and the structure of the beat, so it will make it really unique. next up I grabbed this analog bass and just put a slight EQ on it to get rid of all the high end from the bass. And I'm starting with the bass because I actually want to figure out the progression of my sample so I can add chords later on. So here is the bass I made. Next up, we can move on to our drums. So we have this very upbeat type of tempo in our sample chops. So I kind of wanted to keep that in our drums. So I chose these two kicks, these rim shots, a clap, and a snare. And so I started by recording these rim shots just to set the groove and the bounce of the beat. You can also hear that they're getting constantly panned left and right just to add a little bit of variation. Then I just added those very basic claps and snares. And I finished the drum pattern by running it off with our kicks. And that's actually everything I did for the drums. So next up, I grabbed this Juno 6 and I actually wanted to make it sound way bigger and way wider. So I added a little bit of reverb, a chorus, a phaser, a EQ just to contain some of the low frequencies, and a OTT multiband compressor. So the Juno will sound like this now. And I created these chords following our bass line. Lastly, we just have those caps in the beat. So here I grabbed another Juno 6. I panned it a little bit to the left and I created this melody that's just gonna fill in the gaps between our chords. And so if I grab all of this and arrange the entire beat out, here is how it's going to sound. And as our third point, we've got my favorite technique, which is real life. What I mean by this is not actually what most of you thought. So I don't mean digging through actual vinyl records. Basically, what I actually meant by this is that whenever you're out somewhere or you're driving somewhere and you hear a song on a radio or a song your granny is playing or anybody else, just be constantly on the lookout for new samples and be constantly open for actual creative ideas to arrive naturally to you. And this is literally my favorite technique of finding samples. This is literally how 80% of my best beats came to life. I was just doing some random task and I just heard this song and I was like, damn, I need to sample it. So to actually show off this technique, I found this song Is What You Do by King Hannibal. You say you love me. And so when I heard that guitar right at the beginning there, I already knew that I need to sample this song. So I actually just took this guitar from the beginning and I pitched it up to semitones. Then I put it into a sampler so I can play it on my keyboard. And next what I did, I just added a couple effects, an EQ to contain the frequencies of it, a compressor and a analog clip. You say you love me. And so here's the pattern of how I chopped it up. Then I found this drum break by Billy Gardner called I Got Some, and after I chopped it up, it literally fits the sample perfectly. And the only thing I added to this drum break was this kick to just thicken up the first hit of every 2 bars. Next up, I grabbed this analog lap bass and I went ahead and thickened it up with analog clip and just added a slide EQ to cut off some of the high end. And I literally made this pattern with it using one single note. Then I wanted to make a section B for this beat, so I based it off of this bass. I grabbed 3 different strings from symphony orchestra and I made those chords. However, I just split them between 3 different instruments. So we got string 1, string 2, and string 3. And so the chords with the bass sound like this. Lastly, I just used one more analog lap synth and made a really simple melody with it that's just gonna fill in our section B. And so if you want to learn how to sample, then check out Sample Academy. It's truly the best place for you to learn sampling. It's first link in the description, and we currently have a special discount for the first 10 new members that join. So check it out. And if I just grab all of this and arrange the entire beat out, here's how it's going to sound.